him up and said, well, they just don't know what to do with each other. So the Spirit took him up and took him up to heaven. Same thing. Folks on a cross, all walking about. But instead of being very thin, they were all very fat, well fed. Banquet tables still set around and everyone full of plenty. And the man looked around and said, hey, you know, why is this? Why is it that everyone here is plump and well fed with all the banquet tables set before them? We saw the same thing down below and no one seemed to be able to enjoy any of it. The Spirit looked at him and said, well, up here they feed each other. Down there is everyone for themselves. God's kingdom on earth, where everyone is taking care of each other. No one is just for themselves. That's what it's about. Amen. We've been talking some about the Sermon on the Mount, and we continue on the Sermon on the Mount today. I was saying last Sunday, Jesus seems to set some impossible goals and ideas before us as we look at the Sermon on the Mount. It makes you really begin to wonder, what is it about being a Christian? You know, it's difficult to be a Christian. Now, like it or not, it's easy to come forward. It's difficult to be a Christian. If we were to take the mandate that Jesus gave his disciples seriously and really try to engage in trying to live the life that Jesus was calling his disciples to live, we would be going to have to go through a change. There's no other way that we could live. We would have to be changed. We would have to be transfigured, transformed from who we normally would be to something different. But that should be no surprise. When you came forward or when you were baptized, and at this point all of us would raise our hand and say we were baptized. When you were baptized, it was understood that you were being made new, that you were changing the direction in your life. For in baptism, we are being changed from a temporal, physical self to an other-world existence. We are being redefined in terms of an existence that is not of this world. We want to begin to imagine ourselves and image ourselves in a journey that takes us to bring us to a position where we are so transformed that when Jesus returns, Jesus would say, you belong to me. And pick us out of the crowd very easily. We would, in essence, say that we are born again. That we are born to something radically different than the way we were living before. That's what baptism is about. It's about deciding that Jesus is the owner of our life and rules our lives, and we submit ourselves to that rule. And so we seek to live in a way that reflects that we are born to witness to something outside of ourselves, outside of the ordinary, outside of the normal way that we would act and make decisions and respond to each other. It's insane, some folks would say. Because we're called to do things that no one else is called to do. Think about it for a moment. There are other world religions where millions of people participate all over the world, but they're not asked to do what Christians are asked to do. Love your enemy as yourself. You can't have a jihad if you're a Christian, because there is no vengeance for you. There is no revenge for you. There is no retaliation for you. You are to love your enemy. seek God's guidance for your enemies. No other religion says that God shines his sunshine on the evil and the good. And if the rain of God falls on those who are evil and on the good, God does not specialize. And here we come. Folks say, you must be crazy. You must be insane. And yet we say we are born again. Well, if we're born again, then it seems to me we have to take a look at where we are, what we are, and what we are about. Jesus was born into a world that was not a good world. It was a troublesome place. Jesus was born into a world that was broken. The rich got richer and the poor got poorer. It was intentionally set up so that those who were at the bottom had to give up and sacrifice and pay more so that those at the top could enjoy more. And we're in the same kind of world. The 1%ers are continuing to make more and more and more. And the other 97% make less and less and less. And the 49%, most of us saying, we have to give up and bleed so that those at the 1% at the top can enjoy more and more and more. And they can't do any more with the more than we can with the less. They still have to eat. They still have to have somewhere to sleep. They still have to get around. And they still are limited in the pleasures that they're able to provide. It's just the quantity that is different. And yet here we are. We're part of a system that says the only way we can provide and go forward is that some folks have to work for less than it's worth so that we can sell the product of their work for more than it's worth so that we can make a profit. That's the kind of system that we are a part of. But then the socialist system doesn't seem to be much better because it says everybody owns everything, and in the socialist system, only a few of the everybody's seem to be able to move about and enjoy everything because a lot of the everybody's seem to have much of nothing and are under the rule and thumb of the few. So somewhere, something's off. Somewhere, something seems to be off, and in the midst of all of this, we walk about as Christians, like Jesus, born into a broken world. But yet, like Jesus, we have the power, we have the inner strength, we have the inner spirit that allows us to confront this system and to say that it's wrong, something has to be changed. Praise God. We've been given the power. We've been given the ability, the inner strength to help make those changes. We don't seem to be able to exercise it. So I say to you today, we've got to begin to put down a foundation. A foundation that helps, upon which we can build, that helps folks to begin to see who we are. If we are Christians, folks need to be able to see what it means to be a Christian. They need to see Christ in us and through us. They need to see the presence and strength that comes from Christ, changing the world as Christ changed the world, but they need to see that through us. Christ needs to be able to use our hands. But we can't do it unless we're willing to make some changes in ourselves. We can't be Christian without making changes in ourselves. It's not going to happen just because we tweet. You know, you take a look at the picture and you tweet it a little bit, and it alters the picture a little bit. You know, they've got these programs now that you download for your iPhone, and you take a picture. And then you use the program to tweet it. And you can make thin folks fat and fat folks thin. You can change the Well, we can't tweak our lives and ourselves and make the kind of changes that God is asking us to make because we are Christians. And Christ in us says we have to move in a different direction. We can't do it without moving forward in a way that causes us to feel uneasy and upset and unsettled. Because it's not the normal way we would want to act or to proceed. It keeps us off balance. And we're challenged because we have to do things that we're not likely to do. We can't seem to be able to do it without making real life changes in how we talk, how we walk, how we act, how we relate, making us look totally different. We can't seem to be able to do it without managing some of the things that normally we are about. You know, it's easy to get angry with folks. You feel like you've been misused and abused, and folks aren't picking up their share and doing the